A wildfire rages, swallowing entire forests in a fury of flames, and in the heart of that inferno, a tiny bobcat fights for his life. Sounds like a scene from a blockbuster, right? But this is relent. It's about to get wilder. Meet Ember, a young bobcat who didn't just escape a blaze. He stole the hearts of an entire fire station. This isn't your average rescue story. It's a jaw-dropping tale of courage, connection, and a feline who became an unlikely hero. How does a wild animal end up bunking with firefighters? And what happens when the call of the wild pulls him back? You're about to find out. This story will hit you right in the feels. Humans and wildlife forging a bond that defies the odds, all against the backdrop of a world on fire. It's raw, it's real, and it's a wake-up call about the planet we share. Stick with us to see how one little bobcat became a symbol of hope, and maybe, just maybe, you'll want to join the fight to keep these stories alive. Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's dive into the adventure of the bobcat who joined the fire department. You won't believe where this journey takes us. The sky was a furnace, choked with ash and fury, as the wildfire tore through the canyon like a beast unleashed. Trees cracked and fell, their screams drowned by the roar of flames. Amid this chaos, a tiny figure darted through the underbrush, a young bobcat, barely more than a kitten, eyes wide with terror. His fur was singed, his paws blistered, yet he ran, driven by an instinct to survive. This is his story, one of rescue and redemption, a tale that proves even in the darkest moments, compassion can light the way. The firefighters of Station 42 were no strangers to danger. For weeks, they'd battled the blaze, faces streaked with soot, hearts heavy with the toll of destruction. Captain Elena Ruiz led her team through the inferno, her voice steady over the crackle of radios. "Keep moving, stay sharp," she called, scanning the horizon. That's when she saw a flash of tiny fur stumbling through the smoke. Without hesitation, she sprinted toward the bobcat, scooping him into her arms as embers rained down. Her crew followed, shielding them both, their boots pounding against the scorched earth. It was a moment of raw courage, a choice to save a life when all seemed lost. Back at the truck, the bobcat shivered in Elena's jacket, his golden eyes locking onto hers. He was no ordinary animal. He carried the spirit of the wild, unbroken despite the flames. The crew named him Ember, a nod to the fire that nearly claimed him. As they drove back to the station, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that this rescue was more than chance, it was fate. Ember's story wasn't just about survival, it was about trust, about humans and wildlife finding common ground in crises. But what would it take to care for a creature born to roam free? And could this fragile bond endure? As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of bruised purple, Elena glanced at Ember, curled up in a makeshift bed. She wondered what lay ahead for this brave little soul. The wildfire still raged, and the station was about to become an unlikely home. What would happen when a wild heart met the warmth of human kindness? The fire station buzzed with a warmth that felt almost defiant against the wildfire's lingering shadow. Amid the clatter of gear and the hum of exhausted voices, a new rhythm emerged, soft paws patting across the concrete floor. Ember, the young bobcat rescued from the flames, wasn't just a guest. He was weaving himself into the fabric of Station 42. His story, born in chaos, was now a quiet melody of connection, a testament to the unexpected bonds that bloom where least expected. Firefighter Jamal Carter, a man built like a linebacker but with a heart soft as dawn, took to Ember like a kid with a new best friend. "Come on, little guy, let's get you cleaned up," he'd say, gently dabbing antiseptic on Ember's singed paws. The bobcat, wary at first, would flinch, his ears twitching like tiny radar dishes. But Jamal's patience was a language Ember understood. Soon, the animal began to lean into his touch, a low purr rumbling like a distant engine. The crew marveled at how a creature of the wild could find solace in a place of alarms and urgency. Feeding Ember was its own adventure. Rookie firefighter Mia Torres laughed as she offered bits of raw chicken, watching Ember's sharp teeth make quick work of the meal. "He's got spirit," she said, her eyes sparkling. But caring for a wild animal wasn't all warm fuzzies. Ember's instincts kicked in at odd moments, swiping at a dangling hose or bolting under a cot at the sound of a siren. The firefighters learned fast, loving wildlife meant respecting its untamed heart. Each day brought new lessons, like how to balance care with caution, or how a single moment of trust could shift everything. One evening, as the crew gathered for dinner, Ember leapt onto the table, eyeing Jamal's sandwich. Laughter erupted, but Elena caught a deeper truth. This bobcat wasn't just healing. He was teaching them about resilience, about finding home in unlikely places. Yet, as Ember's wounds faded, questions loomed. Could a creature born for the wild truly belong here? And what would it mean to help him heal, knowing he might one day leave? As moonlight spilled through the station's windows, Ember curled up beside Jamal, his golden eyes half closed. The crew exchanged glances, sensing something bigger was unfolding. This wasn't just about rescue anymore, it was about transformation. What would Ember's next chapter hold as he grew stronger? In the quiet corners of Station 42, where the scent of smoke still clung to the air, Ember's journey took on a new cadence. The young bobcat, once a trembling bundle of singed fur, was beginning to reclaim his strength, his story unfolding like a river finding its course after a storm. His golden eyes, once clouded with fear, now sparkled with curiosity, darting toward every clank of a fire truck or rustle of a broom. This was no ordinary recovery, it was a dance between instinct and care, a delicate balance that captivated everyone watching. Each morning, firefighter Mia Torres charted Ember's progress with the precision of a scientist and the heart of a friend. She'd kneel beside his crate, noting how his burns were healing, how his steps grew steadier. "Look at you, tough guy," she'd whisper as Ember batted at a toy made from an old glove. The crew learned to read his moods, playful one moment, retreating to a corner the next. A reminder that wildlife carries a rhythm humans can only hope to understand. Veterinary expert Dr. Leela Chen visited weekly, her calm expertise grounding the team. "He's resilient," she said, "but his spirit's wild. We're not taming him, we're giving him a chance to return to it." Rehabilitation wasn't just about mending wounds, it was about honoring the animal within. The firefighters built a small enclosure in the station's yard where Ember could leap and stalk, his muscles remembering the wild. Watching him pounce on a pile of leaves, Jamal grinned, but his eyes held a question. Was this enough? Chen explained that bobcats like Ember needed more than safety, they needed freedom to thrive. The crew grappled with the weight of this truth, their bond with Ember deepening even as they knew his future lay beyond their walls. One afternoon, as rain pattered on the station's roof, Ember leapt onto a windowsill, staring out at the distant hills. His silhouette against the gray sky felt like a painting of hope and longing. Elena, watching him, felt a pang. This rescue wasn't just about saving a life. It was about preparing Ember for what came next. But could they let go when the time came? And what would it mean to release a piece of their hearts back into the wild? As Ember's strength grew, so did the crew's sense of purpose. His recovery was rewriting their own story, but the horizon held new questions. What would happen when Ember was ready to face the world again? The morning sun broke over the hills, casting golden threads across the valley where the wildfire had once raged. Station 42 stood quieter now, the air no longer thick with ash, but alive with a sense of possibility. Ember, the young bobcat whose rescue had sparked a story of courage, stood at the edge of his enclosure, his tawny fur gleaming like a beacon. Today was the day he'd return to the wild, a moment that felt both like a triumph and a quiet ache for the firefighters who'd become his family. This wasn't just a release, it was a symbol, a living testament to the unbreakable bond between humans and wildlife. The crew gathered near a forested ridge, their faces a mix of pride and bittersweet anticipation. Driver Leela Chen, the vet who'd guided Ember's recovery, held the crate as Elena knelt beside it. "You're ready, little warrior," she murmured, her voice catching. When the door swung open, Ember hesitated, his eyes scanning the trees. Then, with a flick of his tail, he bounded forward, vanishing into the underbrush like a whisper of the wind. The firefighters cheered, but their eyes glistened. His departure was a reminder that love sometimes means letting go. This animal, born of the wild, had taught them that hope isn't just survival, it's the courage to start anew. Ember's story rippled beyond the station, touching a community grappling with the scars of wildfires. His release sparked conversations about conservation, about protecting the landscapes that cradle wildlife. The crew reflected on the broader fight, rising temperatures, shrinking habitats, and the urgent need to act. Ember wasn't just a bobcat, he was a mirror, showing what's at stake when nature and humanity collide. As Jamal put it, saving him felt like saving a piece of the world. The story wasn't just heartwarming, it was a call to stand up for the planet. Yet, as the crew drove back to the station, a question lingered in the silence. Ember was free, but what now? How could his story inspire others to act, to protect the wild places and creatures that need us most? The horizon glowed with possibility, but the next step was unclear, waiting for someone to seize it. As dusk settled, painting the sky with streaks of fire, Elena stared out at the hills where Ember now roamed. His story wasn't over, it was a spark, ready to ignite something bigger. What would it take to carry that flame forward? The embers of Ember's story still glow, a spark that lights up the heart of anyone who hears it. This young bobcat, plucked from the jaws of a wildfire, didn't just survive, he became a bridge, connecting a gritty fire station to the wild pulse of nature. Now, as his paw prints fade into the forest, his rescue leaves us with a challenge. What will we do to protect the world he's returned to? This isn't just a story, it's a wake-up call, urging us to step up for wildlife and the heroes who fight for it. Think about the firefighters of Station 42, their hands calloused from battling blazes, yet gentle enough to cradle a scared animal. They're not alone in this fight. Across the globe, organizations dedicated to wildlife conservation and firefighting efforts pour their hearts into saving creatures like Ember and the lands they roam. You can be part of this. Support groups like the Wildlife Conservation Network or your local fire department's community programs. Every dollar, every volunteer hour keeps these stories alive. Check out resources like WildNet or fire.ca.gov to learn how bobcats thrive and why wildfires are growing fiercer. Knowledge is power, and it starts with you. This isn't just about one bobcat. It's about the ripple effect of compassion. Imagine the countless animals still out there, waiting for their chance at rescue. Picture the forests that need our voices to survive. Ember's journey showed us that one act of bravery can change everything, but what happens next depends on us. Will we let his story fade, or will we carry it forward? As the stars blinked above Station 42, the crew sat quietly, their thoughts on Ember and the wild he now called home. His story had changed them, but the world was watching. What would it take to turn this spark into a movement? Ember's story isn't just a fleeting moment, it's a mirror held up to our world, reflecting the courage, compassion, and connection that bind us to the wild. From a terrified bobcat fleeing a wildfire to a symbol of resilience, bounding back into the forest, his journey with Station 42's firefighters reminds us of something profound. Even in the face of destruction, hope can take root. But what does this mean for you watching right now? Ask yourself, when was the last time you saw a spark of kindness change a life? Could you be the one to light that spark for another creature, another cause? This story challenges us to look at the world differently, to see the animals, the forests, the firefighters who stand on the front lines of a planet in crisis. What will you do with Ember's legacy? Will you share his story, support wildlife conservation, or maybe even volunteer to protect the wild places we all depend on? If stories like this move you, if you believe that connections between humans and animals can rewrite the future, then don't stop here. Subscribe to our channel for more tales that stir the soul and spark action. These stories need to be heard, and your voice can amplify them. Drop a comment. What did Ember's journey teach you? Let's keep this fire burning.